So, factories and services. Yeah. When you think about a factory, like what does a car factory do? It makes cars, right? So the whole purpose of a factory in Angular is to create stuff. So to create Grumbles, say, or if we were doing tuner for the umpteenth time, then maybe it would create artists or it would create songs. That's the whole purpose of a factory, is to create new instances of some kind of an object. That's all it does. Bless you. In this case, the thing we are going to be factorying, the thing that the factory is going to be creating, is Grumbles. But they're going to be Grumbles that are more than just a title. It's going to be sort of a Grumble linked to the API. We're going to use this thing called ngResource that's going to take a Grumble and it's going to give it a whole bunch more AJAX methods. So you remember from object-oriented JavaScript, we define our own methods like .fetch, I think, and probably .update and stuff. We would do like songs.fetch or artist.fetch or whatever. This ngResource thing takes care of all of that for us. So we don't need to go around defining our own fetch things. It's going to do it for us. So that's what we're doing with this factory right here, which is going to make this whole process of getting stuff from an API much easier because it's taking care of everything for us. Sort of like how Active Record Base gives you like a zillion different methods right out of the box. Zillion different methods that let you write data. This ngResource thing, the exact same thing. Gives you a zillion different methods that let you write data and read data and just CRUD all over the place. Yep, see, like the acronym, not like, actual CRUD. Okay, so here's an example of what a factory looks like. Notice that it says no need to code along since this won't actually be incorporated into Grumbler. This is just a sample one. They look like this. The most important thing to know about a factory is that a factory has to return something. Factory has to return something. Usually it's going to return an object, which is what we see going on here. It returns an object with some methods and stuff inside it. So a factory returns an object that has methods and properties. Then you can go into a controller and you can call that factory. So up here, this factory returns an object with a hello world method. And then down here in this controller, you can see we've included the factory as a dependency, and now we're calling that factory's hello world method. So that's sort of how they go together like that. And this is going to be the exact same thing with ngResource, except instead of returning hello world, it's going to return .get, .update, a whole bunch of other things. So now we can go into the controller and do grumble, .get, .update, .save, blah, 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 a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, this is nice because it keeps the controller clean. What you have in the controller right now, well, you don't have a whole bunch of anything right now, but you could do something like, this dot, I don't know, fetch, and then you could put some AJAX in there. That would like get a whole bunch of stuff from the API and then do something with it. But the result of that is that you're going to have a controller that's really, really long. And so you may as well just sort of put all that stuff into something else. And that something else in this case is going to be the factory. The factory is going to be something that's available in any module we want to let us interact with the Grumbles API. So what that's actually, well, first let's talk about services real quick. Services are almost exactly like factories. The only difference is the server doesn't have a return in it. This looks exactly the same as the factory, except it's called a service, and it's not returning an object with hello world inside it. It just has this .hello world inside it. That's pretty much the only difference. I know that seems really trivial and really stupid. So there are a whole bunch of articles about like, when should I use a factory? When should I use a service? A whole bunch of programmers running their mouths and getting really heated about when you should use a factory or a service. And as I've said before, if you see two programmers having a really heated discussion about something, that thing probably doesn't really matter. That's probably not really the right answer. So if you're really interested, this article is kind of cool. where it talks about what you should use when. And so it talks about factories, providers, all these other things, controllers, all these other things that I didn't know existed. And service occurs once in here, where he says, I've intentionally omitted the service component from this list. I find that using factories lets me accomplish everything I could do with the service. So, it's one of those things where some people are always going to prefer service, other people are always going to prefer factories, and it doesn't really matter too much. I'm belaboring this point simply because you're going to see services out there in the wild in the same way that you're going to see some people using Comic Sans and other people really hating on Comic Sans. Well, okay, with that, there's a right answer. But with factories and services, there's not really a right answer. Okay, cool. So now we are going to create a Grumble factory. Let's see. We're going to need ngResource for that. You should already have that in here. So if you clone this stuff down, you should have this Angular resource file included in your main index.html. Does anyone not? Okay, cool. So now that we have it in here, now we're going to add it as a dependency inside this Grumbles application. Yes, grumbles.js. Oh, so this file, grumbles.js, this is a thing that we originally called grumbles.module.js. I guess we just forgot the .module in here. But remember, the name really doesn't matter. .module just makes it work a little bit more explicit. So I'm going to add ngResource as a dependency inside this Grumbles module. So we have the Grumbler module. I'm doing this in the Grumbles module. This makes it so that I can use, ngResource. This lets me use ngResource's methods and everything in all of the controllers and whatever else is attached to this Grumbles module. So now, let's see. So now we're going to create a Grumbles factory. Whoops, get back there. Create a file called grumble.factory.js. Sorry, I'm trying to get this screen right, but I'm failing miserably. We're going to create a new factory for Grumbles. I'm just going to call it grumble.factory.js. Name doesn't matter, but it's going to be a factory for Grumbles, so I may as well call it a Grumble factory. And we're going to set this up pretty much like anything else in Angular. So I'm going to start off with a use strict, and then I'm going to put in an iffy. And then I'm going to do angular.module, so I'm attaching it to the Grumbles module. And I'll select this out in just a second. And I'm going to call this Grumble factory. Okay, and there's one sort of method that I want to use from ngResource, and that is this resource method. I know that sounds kind of redundant using something called resource from ngResource, but it does have other things inside it beyond just resource. So I got resource in there, and now I need some sort of a function to actually do all of my factory stuff. I could just put the function right in here, but that looks ugly, so I'm going to move it down. Let's call that function factory function. So now I need to define my factory function. There we go. Okay, so let me select this out. So ngResource is like jQuery, and this $resource, this is like Ajax in jQuery, or fade out. It's like a specific part of jQuery. It's totally unrelated to jQuery. I'm just using that as an example. Oh, I forgot one line. So this thing, this is what's actually going to create this new, this $resource thing. This is like the actual active record base model that I mentioned before. This $resource thing, this is what's going to give us all these different API methods. Okay, so let me select out that link as well. Remember I said before that factories have to return an object, or usually return an object. This resource thing, this is an object. This is the object that is being returned by the factory. This $resource thing right here creates an object. So you could do something like var, don't actually do this, but you could do like var object out, and then you could say return object out, and that would just sort of indicate that we're returning an object here. But we don't need to do all that if we don't need to. Write a little bit less code. All right, so out of the box, this gives us several methods, these things. Where is update, you ask? So that's something we're actually going to define ourselves. But the very first thing I want to do right now is just make sure I haven't screwed something up and made an error somewhere. So whenever you make a new JavaScript file, you need to include it in your index.html. That's what I'm going to do right now. I don't think the order really matters, but I'm going to put this before my index controller just sort of as a visual reminder to myself that I should probably have this factory loaded before I do anything with the controller. I think I could put it afterwards as well, but I just feel like this makes, I don't know, a little bit more sense. And when I've done that, I should be able to refresh this page and hopefully not have any errors. Yes. Go team. Any trouble so far? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, so it is http-server. And you need to make sure you do it inside the actual Grumbler Angular folder. HTTP server. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And then notice that we're using localhost 8080 for Grumbler. I still have Rails running in the background. I have this localhost 3000 running over here, but we're not really going to do anything with localhost 3000 in here. Everything is happening in localhost 8080. So the way I have my terminal set up right now is I have Rails running in one tab, HTTP server running in another tab, and then I have this other tab hanging out if I want to, like, I don't know, do other terminal stuff. Cool. All right, so now let's see. All right, so let's actually get this into the index controller. So now that I've injected this Grumble factory, or now that I've added to this Grumbles module, I should be able to access this Grumble factory inside my index controller. So I'm going to do that by injecting it in here. I'm just going to copy whatever this name is. It's Grumble factory right here. Paste it right there. And now I should have access to Grumble factory down here. Just to make sure, I'm going to stop, and I'm just going to console log Grumble factory and make sure it is something. And yeah, I got a whole bunch of weird looking stuff down there. Maybe if I do console.dir, then I can poke around with it a little bit more. Yeah, so here is my Grumble factory right here. This is everything that I get with it. You can see that it has delete, get, query, remove, save. It has all these other things attached to it, all these other different API methods. All right, guys, so now we're going to get our first Grumbles back from the database. What you should have right now is this.grumbles equals these hard-coded grumbles. We are no longer going to use hard-coded grumbles. Now we're going to do grumble factory.query. And when that is done, when I refresh this page, I should hopefully see, there we go, a whole bunch of grumbles that I got from the API. So let me stop there and make sure we're all on the same page. If you haven't gotten to this point, then please raise your hand so I can come over and troubleshoot. So you need to start the Rails server in the actual Rails. So let's go run here. That's HTTP server. And let's run that. And then should be all set up to do this Grumbles, this Grumble factory. I think I missed the steps on that. Can you enter console? Sorry, I mean, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, so just get rid of that closing bracket up there. Actually, you can get rid of that parentheses on that as well. There we go. All right, perfect. Looks like another syntax error, not good. Oh yeah, you can just get rid of this whole array from oh, that's not how it works. Oh, you know what it is? If you go back to that control, you just need to have Grumble factory inside of the parentheses as well. Right there. Yep. Yeah, you can see it up here on the screen. Yeah, thanks. Could you go back to your index.html and could you try putting that grumble.factory.js after Grumbles? Yeah, I know it's going to require an order, but sometimes. Yeah, just go to Grumbles. All right, anything else? Let's see. So if you got actually, and can you go to they literally say where it's from. Okay, well, either the factory or what does it need to be? Setting a local store. It's my can you go back to the demos? Can you see how I just recopied the side of the list to make sure it was great. Oh, that's fine. So go to your and then you can follow the software I don't know where. And then it doesn't matter what it's called because I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why I'm calling it online. I'm not even calling it. Okay, so what I do now is I just start commenting things out in your index.html. So that's our your name. So commenting out everything that you're saying. Okay, so now it's that's where the following doesn't not working, but it's not saying you cannot load it. Right.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You're trying to narrow down to all right, y'all.
Yeah, Cassidy got one of those weird things where he did everything right, and just like refreshing the page a couple times seemed to fix it. I have no idea. I think it's got to be a browser caching thing. If you didn't see this thing yesterday about disabling the cache while the console is open, I would do that. This is a Chrome only thing. Oh, okay. My bad. What's up?
Yeah, it's just supposed to be in the software regions to show that.
All right, guys. Are we good to keep going forward? Yeah. I don't remember where we got these from. Adam got them from somewhere. I don't remember what. Okay, can we bring it back together, please? All right, so let's keep on going. Congratulations, guys. Now you have the C of CRUD, excuse me, not the C, the R of CRUD running in your Grumbler app. For indexes, anyway. And we'll get into show and stuff later on. Oh, in fact, we can do that right now. Why not? So, yeah, let's see. Is there anything I should mention? Nope. Okay, so like we did yesterday where you guys did the show yourself, try doing it yourself here as well. And so just follow the lesson plan thing. This is like, I think I mentioned this before, it's kind of this new thing. We're asking you guys just to like walk through parts of the lesson plan, but I kind of like it because then it's not just me talking a whole bunch. And it's easier to fix problems and stuff. So please go ahead and do this. Feel free to take a break at the same time. And then we'll just bring it back together at, let's say, 11. Davis. I would love to answer a question now, actually.
Okay. On the index.controller, the Grumble factory on line 11 and 12 is just a variable that can be anything, right? So the question is, where does the relationship between the Grumble factory itself, how does that?
Like, how does
the first
this?
time the Grumble index controller function gets called or instantiated or anything is on line 11.
Right.
And it's getting called with this variable that it can use inside of itself. But how is that variable in the Grumble factory?
Yeah, so this, we took. It does. So this is just sort of the weird way Angular has dependency injection set up. These brackets are always going to follow the same order, where it's a whole bunch of dependencies, and then the very last thing is going to be a function. You can either write the function right in here, an anonymous function, or you can put it down here. Writing it in here is ugly, so we put it down here. Yes, it's a callback. So it's a callback that gets executed when everything has been loaded. Right, exactly. And the way it loads things, it uses these strings, because remember, strings don't get minified when you're minifying your code. So if we did just have, plain old Grumble factory in here, then when the code is minified, it would probably be replaced with something like AC, which is completely unhelpful. So it saves it as a string as just kind of a hack to make sure this always says Grumble factory. Please?
So if we have two arguments that are running to line 11 in this function, we listed them in order and then called them as the parameters in order on the function, that would work.
Yeah, well, you've actually already done that with location provider over here. Is that what it was? Location provider? I don't know, something like that. And then you, do it in that order. If you switch the order and put location provider first, then your state provider is going to be called location provider and vice versa, which is confusing. Samira, do you have anything? Something? You got it? Mm-hmm.
The query is linked to the Grumbles in the Grumble factory React. So return resource.
Oh, yeah.
How do you return the index of all the Grumble?
Yeah, so I mean we've seen this a lot before, right? Like that weird polling syntax for URL parameters. Resource uses that exact same syntax. It reads through this string and it's like, okay, I'm going to be making a whole bunch of requests to this URL, which may or may not have an ID at the end. So it knows that this is going to be a variable that may or may not be included in the URL.
In the same way that in the state provider knows that this ID indicates a variable that may be in the URL parameter. And so it's the exact same thing for the resource. It's just telling the resource, hey, expect to have an ID in here.
Resource is all about being RESTful, and RESTful routes always follow this syntax, where you have something like /artists, that takes you to an index, /artists/32, that takes you to artist number 32, /grumbles, that takes you to the grumbles index, /grumbles/32, that takes you to the 32nd grumble. They always follow that same syntax. And resource is built around that RESTful syntax.
So if you're trying to use some like Whopper Jod API where it uses like bizarre URLs that look something other than like this, resource probably isn't going to work. Resource relies on URLs looking a certain way.
Resource is doing a lot. There's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm. So right now, that could be like
Yeah, but if it was an API, I mean, all you would change is you would just do something like, I don't know, api.grumbler.com/. Yeah. We're just doing it on localhost, so we don't have 8 million people updating and deleting the same Grumbles. Any other questions? Can I release you guys to work on this stuff for a bit, to go through the lesson plan? Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then we'll bring it back together at, let's say, noon. So that gives you 25 minutes to work on this show section and take a break as you would like.